Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Mr. Douglas Sports Show. I am your host, Corey Douglas, as always. And on this episode, we have a lot to get to right now. The sports world is on fire, and that's primarily due to the NBA offseason really getting kicked off this week. On Monday, you had NBA trades being able to be opened up, and it was a busy day that day. Then tonight, you have the NBA draft. A lot of storylines coming out of that. Friday, you have the start of free agency. December 1st starts training camp for all teams across the NBA. They're looking to get NBA training camps kicked off between December 19th or December 11th and December 19th. And then you have the regular season starting December 22nd. And where I want to begin on today's episode is all the rumors that are going on right now, headlined by everybody in Houston wanting out. Starting with James Harden, Russell Westbrook, they no longer want to play together. James Harden is trying to force his way to Brooklyn. Houston's not really going for that right now. What tells the story of how bad James Harden wants to get out, and I find it pretty much hilarious, is he turned down a $50 million per season deal to stay in Houston, and he told the management, I want out to Brooklyn. And what that tells me is that, all right, so one, he's not happy in Houston, which is the obvious, because if you're turning down $50 million a season to stay in a place, you are really unhappy. But number two, it tells me that James Harden realizes he can't do it on his own. And that's something that I have been saying personally for years. James Harden needs to be the second or third option on a championship team. Him as a first option with the isolation basketball. It's just not a match made in heaven for a championship run. And then you go over to Westbrook. Apparently no one wants this guy. And I can't blame any NBA teams that are saying, no, we're going to stay away. So there's a couple angles with the Russell Westbrook thing that I'm kind of paying attention to. Number one is the story that came out saying that Westbrook wants to get back to his ball-dominant ways that he had in OKC. Which to me is delusional on Westbrook's part, because he's one of those guys that I compare him to Dwight Howard. And the reason I compare him to Dwight Howard is because Russell Westbrook's game has never changed throughout these years. He still can't shoot. He's still extremely inefficient. And Dwight Howard, he never developed a solid post game to really take his career to the next level. Yeah, he was an elite rebounder, an elite shot blocker. He could catch a bunch of lobs, but his game never was the game where you could, hit the mid-range shot consistently or have his back to the basket and get easy hoops that way. So that's what I see from Westbrook, and that doesn't surprise me that no teams really are going after him. And then plus you end up with his huge salary, which no teams really want that either. At the end of the day, I do expect Harden to end up either in Brooklyn, where he really wants to go, or maybe Philadelphia. And I expect Westbrook to end up in a team like the New York Knicks, because they love dysfunction and can't get it right with that franchise. Or Michael Jordan really wants Russell Westbrook in Charlotte, so I can see that happening. But obviously, Charlotte's not wanting to give up their number 4 draft pick in tonight's NBA draft. So that remains to be seen on how close they'll get to trading him. Alright, so the next thing that really caught my eye is what the Milwaukee Bucks did late Monday night by acquiring Jrue Holiday from the Pelicans for 3 first-round draft picks, and then also acquiring Bogdan Bogdanovic from Sacramento in a sign-and trade, because Bogdanovic was actually a restricted free agent. So the process is a little bit different, but to make it easier, and so Milwaukee doesn't have to wait around, they do a sign-and trade. And I want to touch on the Milwaukee Bucks trading 3 first-round draft picks to New Orleans for Jrue Holiday. So a lot of people in Milwaukee's catching a lot of heat of that, because a lot of people are saying that, oh wow, they really put themselves in a bad position going forward if Giannis decides to leave. And my thoughts on that are Milwaukee did what they had to do. So when you have a superstar mega talent like Giannis, and he's coming up on free agency after this upcoming season, if he doesn't sign the super max this offseason, which would pay him close to like $50 million per season or something like that, you have to do what you have to do to protect your superstar and try to keep him there. Now, I still think it's going to be up in the air. I personally don't think that Giannis will sign that Supermax extension this offseason. I think he will take it out into free agency because I think he wants to see what are they gonna do in the playoffs. So Milwaukee, like I said, they gutted their future, they gutted their bench. So when free agency opens on Friday, they'll be looking for a lot of veteran role players to come off the bench and really fill out the depth on that team now that it's all gone. But like I said, I don't have a problem with Milwaukee doing what they have to do to keep their superstar because I realize that Dallas could potentially be in the same situation here in a couple years or several years down the road with Luka. That's why right now the Mavs, they have to put a team around Luka to make sure their superstar is satisfied, which leads me to the Phoenix Suns acquiring 35-year-old Chris Paul in a deal that sent Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, and a couple other role players to OKC, along with a couple first-round picks. I like that move for Phoenix for sure. So Devin Booker is a young superstar. He's an ascending superstar in this league. And the Phoenix Suns are doing what they have to do to pair him and DeAndre Ayton with a veteran. Although Chris Paul hasn't gotten to that point where he can get to the championship quite yet, he is an elite point guard. You see what he did in OKC last year, leading that young squad to the playoffs. I would expect him to do the same in Phoenix with, I would say, a little better talent when you talk about Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. And then on the flip side of that, you have OKC, who just continues to stockpile first-round draft picks. They now have 17 first-round draft picks between now, starting with tonight's draft, up until the year 2027. And I don't think they're going to be done making moves right now because they acquired 4 or 5 players in that Chris Paul trade, which means guys like Steven Adams, guys like Kelly Oubre, Ricky Rubio, they could still be on the move at some point during this offseason. So I think there's still a lot unsettled there in that situation. All right, so a couple of the storylines going to the draft, like I said, is tonight. Obviously, when you talk drafts, you always want to know what's kind of going on at the top because that's kind of where the most interest comes for as far as trades. Do teams later in the lottery want to trade up into the top 5, top 3? Potentially top 2. So tonight, what I'm going to be following are, first of all, what Minnesota does at number 1. Last year, they made the acquisition of D'Angelo Russell to pair with his best buddy, Karl Anthony Towns. That's a nice, solid core. Now, will they add another young piece, or will they package that number 1 pick maybe later in the lottery to take somebody else to pair with those 2 young stars? Number 2 at Golden State. So this one is probably the most interesting aspect or angle that I have in the top 5 because when Golden State first secured the number 2 draft pick, it was believed that they would trade that pick for an impact player along with Andrew Wiggins. But now as we get closer to the draft, there's rumblings that they might take a guy like James Wiseman, which is a 7-foot center. So I think that's really interesting. And obviously you have Steph Curry coming back off injury. You have Klay Thompson coming back off injury. Draymond Green's still there. And if they keep Andrew Wiggins, he's still there. So obviously Golden State is, I think they are going to want to step right back into the championship conversation. Then at number 6, you have the Atlanta Hawks, which I feel like they've been in a lottery for the last 25 to 30 years. I just feel, I know they haven't because they did have some good seasons where they won 60 games, ran into LeBron, but it just feels like they're always picking at the top. Of course, you have young talent like Trae Young, you have young talent like Jonathan Collins, but they just can't seem to get it right. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at 6. Will they trade that pick? There was rumblings last week that they would be interested in trading for Jrue Holiday. Obviously, that's off the board now with Holiday going to the Milwaukee Bucks. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Can they get Trae Young some help? Because you speak of young superstars that these teams have to appease to avoid them leaving. Trae Young's on that list. Those are my top 3 headlines for the NBA draft tonight. Now I want to transition over to some other guys that could potentially be traded either tonight or going forward as the offseason really gets really off and running on Friday with free agency. So number 1 is the Indiana Pacers' Victor Oladipo. There's a lot of rumblings around him that he could be traded. There's rumblings that Dallas could be interested in making a move there. I don't want Victor Oladipo personally. I think when you talk about appeasing superstars, surrounding him with injury-prone players is not the direction that I would go or the direction that I want the Dallas Mavericks to go in. So I'm out on Victor Oladipo. But on a greater scale, a greater NBA scale, there's not much interest on Victor Oladipo's part either. He's in the same boat as Russell Westbrook. So obviously they're different players, but the injury concerns for Oladipo are, I think, substantial, and that's why you see the interest not there for him. Then you go to San Antonio, and San Antonio is in a position where I think they are ready to just hit the reset button and start it all over. I think they're going to trade LaMarcus Aldridge. I think they're going to trade DeMar DeRozan. Last week, before the Lakers traded for Dennis Schroeder, there was talks about the Lakers potentially trading Kuzma and the 28th pick to San Antonio for DeMar DeRozan. If that's the way that the NBA is going to go, I can't get behind that. I mean, you have the Lakers get Anthony Davis last year. You have, then you're talking about trading Kyle Kuzma for DeMar DeRozan. That is a steal if the Lakers are able to pull that one off still. But I think the more likely scenario is that DeMar DeRozan goes to an Eastern Conference team and gets back to, I guess, a lead dog role out there. The next name I have on this list is Buddy Hield. This is a guy that fell out of favor with Coach Luke Walton in Sacramento. He got sent to the bench in favor of Bogdan Bogdanovic, who's actually no longer there, as we touched on earlier. So maybe that relationship can be mended, but I expect him to be traded. And there's a report last week saying that he would prefer to come to Dallas. Philadelphia is also interested. I would love Buddy Hield in Dallas. He signed a 4-year, $94 million contract last season. You would have him locked up for at least 3 seasons, and he's an elite shooter. So obviously with Luka, those percentages always go up. Even if he's like shooting 45, 46%, now you're getting up to 47, 48% just because the space that Luka creates. And it goes the same for if you're shooting 30% from 3, you go up to 33, 34 just because of the looks that Luka's going to create for you. So that's my dream guy that if the Mavs are going to pull off a trade somehow, I would love Buddy Hield to be here in Dallas. Then this next name, staying on the West Coast, is a name that I don't know if will be traded, but I think it's an interesting thought. And that name is Paul George. So the Clipper season obviously didn't end the way they expected it to end. They lost in the second round to the Denver Nuggets, and there was a lot of chaos going on in that situation. You have Montrezl Harrell and Paul George beefing. Who knows how happy Kawhi is with Paul George as a teammate. So I think that's a name that's interesting to watch. Like I said, I'm not expecting him to be traded, but I think it's an interesting thought, and I think it is possible. Now, going back to the East Coast and the Brooklyn Nets, Spencer Dinwiddie, he's a guy that's been in trade rumors these last couple of seasons. He's a guy that will be involved in a trade for James Harden if that trade comes to fruition. Like I said, Houston is not really in the mode to really get rid of James Harden or Russell Westbrook before the season started. They don't really have a whole lot of motivation for that. And so that's the latest updates with the NBA in this offseason. To me, the NBA has the best offseason hands down when you talk about trades, you talk about free agency. And I think a big part of that is because the players are so in control of their futures to an extent, more so than you can get in any other sport. So that's what makes this time really fun. And who knows what will have happened between now, when I'm recording, and next week. Because, like I said, these things move fast, and then free agency, once that opens up on Friday, things are really going to start moving. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But now I want to talk some NFL football. And the Cowboys didn't play this past week. They had their bye week. So I don't have a game to recap. But Obviously, the NFC East, the other three teams in the NFC East played. The Eagles played the Giants and went up to New York or New Jersey and got destroyed. And it just goes to show there's not a clear favorite in the NFC East. And actually, that particular game led me to really start thinking, are the Giants the best team in the NFC East? And if so, how the hell did that happen? But at the same time, I was also thinking, damn, the Cowboys really still have a chance to win this division, which I don't want any parts of. So next week this is what I'm going to do over the next week and a half, is I'm really going to start diving into all four team schedules in the NFC East. I can tell you right off the top of my head that the Eagles have the toughest schedule. So I don't know if they have one or two more wins in them that it will take to win this division, because I truly believe that 5 or 6 wins will definitely win the NFC East. And for me, on a personal level, I'm hoping the Cowboys don't secure those wins needed to win the division. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do next week, and I will have that breakdown for you guys on next week's episode. Obviously, like I said, I want the Cowboys to lose every remaining game that they have and to secure the best draft pick they can get. But I do have a couple of games that I'm going to be paying extra close attention to, and they're both in the 12 o'clock hour for this upcoming Sunday. Number one is the Bengals and Washington football team. I would be okay with either one of these teams winning this particular football game, but I'm leaning towards the Washington football team just because I need someone in the NFC East to step up and win a couple of games to ensure that the Cowboys do not win this division. But I'm also okay with the Bengals winning because they have 2 wins, so it's kind of like a win-win situation. Next game up is the Detroit Lions versus the Carolina Panthers. And the storyline out of that game is the health status of Teddy Bridgewater. He suffered a knee injury against the Tampa Bay Bucks Sunday afternoon. It's unsure if he'll be able to play this upcoming Sunday. But if he does play, I do hope Carolina comes away with a win. They've lost 5 in a row, and they are creeping down into the top 5 as far as draft picks go. So I need them to get back on track, and the Lions are coming off a win against Washington this week, so they are due for a loss. But on the Cowboys front, the Cowboys will be taking on the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming Sunday, 3:25 start. Storylines heading into this game is Andy Dalton is back practicing, getting in a full session on Monday. I expect he'll do the same today on Wednesday when they report back to the Star in Frisco. And Chidobe Awuzie got activated from IR this past week while they were on the bye week, so he should be back. But obviously, it's kind of par for the course for this Cowboys team this season. You get one guy back and just to lose another guy, and that other guy is Trevon Diggs, which we talked about last week. He will be out probably the rest of the season. Minnesota has now won 3 straight, all 3 against division opponents, so that includes the Green Bay Packers on the road at Lambeau Field. So that leads me to my keys to the game for the Cowboys to come away with a win against Minnesota. Number 1 is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is going crazy right now. He's the NFL's leading rusher. And what Minnesota really wants to do is they want to keep the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands to avoid Kirk Cousins being Kirk Cousins and tricking off the game, I guess you can say. So they really want to run to Dalvin Cook. And off of those runs, they want to get to play action, which leads me to my number 2 key to the game for the Cowboys. And that is containing the wide receiver combo of Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Jefferson is the rookie receiver from LSU. He leads all NFL rookies with 762 receiving yards. And he has 4 100-yard games so far this rookie season. And then on the other side, you have Adam Thielen, who leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns with 9. So that is quite the duo, or quite the combination that you have at receiver there. So it's going to be very important for the Cowboys to get a hold of that to make sure they can get out of Minnesota with a win. My number 3 key to the game is Minnesota's defense is not what you would call good. So if you watch the game Monday night, obviously they beat the Bears. The Bears have no offense, so you can't really get a good gauge of what Minnesota's defense truly is. But I don't think you'll be able to gauge that off of Andy Dalton playing quarterback if he indeed starting. Mike McCarthy was he didn't really commit to Andy Dalton starting. He just kind of said we'll play it out. But regardless of the fact whether it's Gilbert or Andy Dalton, you're not getting the Cowboys offense that you would probably get with Dak Prescott. Taking advantage of Minnesota's bad defense is going to be important. And if Andy Dalton does start, I don't know if he's capable of taking advantage of a bad NFL defense at this stage in his career. But they do have Minnesota does have an impact safety back there, Harrison Smith, who's still really good. He's been around for a really long time. So that's their best defensive player. But like I said, Minnesota does not have a good defense, and that will be key for the Cowboys to take advantage of this Sunday. All right, so next up we have this week's NFL Power Rankings. I still have KC number 1. They're 8-1 coming off their bye week. Still looking to find a way to incorporate Le'Veon Bell a little bit more, I think. Number 2, Pittsburgh Steelers. They are 9-0 after shellacking the Cincinnati Bengals 36-10 at home on Sunday. Number 3, I have the New Orleans Saints. And this one's kind of tricky because the Drew Brees injury is a big blow to that team. But I think as you saw last year when they went to Teddy Bridgewater for 5 games when Brees had to miss time, I think they'll be okay. I think the other aspects of that team will step up. And right now, they still look to me to be the most complete team in the NFC. Number 4, I have the Tampa Bay Bucks, who bounced back from a disappointing loss against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday Night Football. Number 5, you have the Green Bay Packers, who are coming off a very unimpressive 24-20 win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know if there was a little bit of overlooking the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they definitely didn't look like them true selves on Sunday. But they are still number 5 in my power rankings for this week. And once again, you have no Seattle Seahawks and no Baltimore Ravens, who both suffered losses this past week. To finish out the show, as we do every week, it's time for my NFL picks for Week 11. And there are some really good games on the docket for this week. Starting with Thursday night when the Arizona Cardinals go take on the Seattle Seahawks. They just played a couple of weeks ago. The game went to overtime. Russell Wilson threw 3 interceptions, which was very uncharacteristic, but now he has 10 turnovers in his last 3 games. But I am picking the Seattle Seahawks to bounce back in this one and win and go to 7-3 and go back into first place in the NFC West. Then going to Sunday's action, I'm taking the Browns over the Eagles. I have the Saints over the Falcons. I have the Cincinnati Bengals beating the Washington Football Team. I have the Detroit Lions actually going to Carolina and beating the Panthers. It's kind of up in the air. It's based off the health of Teddy Bridgewater. If Teddy Bridgewater plays, I might have to go back and rethink that pick. But right now, as it stands, because I'm not expecting Bridgewater to play, I am picking the Lions. Give me the Steelers over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Give me the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Tennessee Titans. Give me the New England Patriots, who have all of a sudden won 2 in a row, to beat the Houston Texans. Give me the Miami Dolphins to go on the road to beat the Broncos. Give me the Chargers to beat the Jets. Give me the Green Bay Packers going to Indianapolis and winning that game. The Colts defense has been really locked down at home. I think they put on a really great performance on the road in Tennessee. But give me the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers to go on the road there. Then on Sunday Night Football, like I said, this is the best slate of games, especially on a national TV standpoint, that I've seen. Because on Sunday Night Football, you have the Kansas City Chiefs going to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Give me the Chiefs getting to get revenge on the Raiders for earlier this year when the Raiders went to KC and upset the Chiefs. Then on Monday Night Football, give me the Bucks take on the Los Angeles Rams. Like I said, another great game. And then lastly, give me the Minnesota Vikings to handle the Dallas Cowboys. Minnesota's playing really good football, and with their upcoming schedule, they have a real chance to possibly get back in the division race, but definitely be a contender in the wild card hunt. That's going to do it for episode 25 of the Mr. Douglass Sports Show. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will be back next week with NBA and the NFL. Until next time, salute.